Hi, hello, David here. Before I say anything, let me be absolutely clear about this. Hoonigan to me means a lot. Even if you know what I'm about to talk about today, I think I can give you a unique perspective because I saw Hoonigan from its infancy all the way to what it became today, and it was a massive inspiration for what I do. So seeing this thing as a massive inspiration to where it is now, it can kind of have you be nostalgic, but also ask some big questions. Because you do have to give credit where it's due. Hoonigan did lead the charge in so many ways. And I think the brand means a lot to car enthusiasts. So anything that I say today, take it with a grain of salt, and also do not take it as a bunch of negative bashing. Nothing towards the host, the brand, or anything like that. Mostly about where it was and where it is today from an outsider's perspective and somebody in the industry. But for full transparency, I do find the state of the brand a real shame at the moment. And I am not one to root for companies to go bankrupt. This isn't a cool moment for me. This isn't something I was cheering on. Because Hoonigan is a brand that brought millions of people into the fold of car culture, with things like Gymkhana and the man himself, Ken Block. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about it. Hoonigan as a brand or being involved with them in any way, shape, or form in the car industry was a badge of honor. Being acknowledged by Hoonigan meant you were cool. You know what I mean? They've got a cool car. They have a cool story to tell. They're worth telling the world and the car enthusiast world their story. It was a car brand that represented the lifestyle of loving cars. That was the entire point. And I think Ken Block wanted it to be that way. I didn't know Ken Block super personally, so please take this how you will. But from the outside, Ken Block was a marketing genius and somebody who loved being a rally and a race car driver. He loved it. And I actually got to visit his office space, the Hoonigan Racing Division, which was actually in Park City, Utah. It had a whole kitchen where the tiles on the countertops were made of skateboard decks. It was really cool. And getting to go to his office, seeing all his race suits, and getting to sit in his cars, massive honor to me. That's how much this brand meant to me. It was just magical. It was like going to Disney World as a car guy. Sitting in the car of one of your heroes in the industry is a cool moment. Oh yeah, by the way, side note, speaking of cool driving, I'd absolutely love if you came to my drift event called Cosmic Drift. It's essentially Rainbow Road. I would love to have you come out, drive it, or come spectate and hang out. Link in the description below. But it is undeniable there has been a shift in, I would call, the vibe of the company. And the vibe, I don't even really mean the hosts of the videos or the way the videos are shot or edited or anything along those lines. I mostly mean the decision to change Wheel Pros' IP, the company that owns Hoonigan, to changing Wheel Pros' name to Hoonigan. I think it's one of the most bizarre marketing decisions I've ever seen personally, which I actually learned about this news while I was standing in the Hoonigan Burnyard at SEMA last fall. I was literally looking at my phone and somebody goes, "Hey, did you hear that they're changing their name to Hoonigan?" I'm like, "Why is Hoonigan changing their name to Hoonigan?" They go, "No, Wheel Pros is changing their name to Hoonigan." I go, why would they do that? It doesn't feel like an obvious choice, right? But then it kind of comes in this weird vibe of like, wait, did they just buy Hoonigan for the IP itself to change their name? Was that their plan all along? Probably not, because I got on my phone while in the Burnyard with all this chaos going on. I'm looking at it and I realize that the Hoonigan website and the Wheel Pros website look nearly identical. And I'm like, oh my God, they really are. They're changing everything over. It was a very, very weird move that I still am perplexed by. I don't know if Wheel Pros thought that would make them look cooler as a brand if they took this legendary lifestyle brand and just rebranded their entire umbrella, but I don't really see it. And we'll get into it in a second. Well, 1 year later, now knowing that they made this decision, Wheel Pros / Hoonigan, whichever one you'd like to call them, is now filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, if you aren't financially super savvy, don't worry, I'll completely oversimplify it for you. Chapter 11 bankruptcy, what does that mean? It doesn't mean they're just completely gone. Not like a business that has to shut their doors and it's game over. So what this means is that this buys them some time to reorganize, restructure, make some big decisions to essentially try to get out of their debt and make good on the debts that they owe. And it also might seem like a big company being millions of dollars in debt would be super uncommon. It's really not that uncommon. There's plenty of huge companies out there that are millions of dollars in debt and they just somehow get out of it. Whether it's good planning, a really good year, things happen, it's not easy. Being in a business is not easy. However, the situation is different here because it's not $100 million. It's not $200 million, which is essentially the price of making a Marvel movie nowadays. It's over $1 billion. Like, holy shit, dude. $1.2 billion is the last estimate that I read. That is terrifying to try and reorganize. And with Wheel Pros changing their IP and expanding like crazy and gobbling up all these brands all at once, they made a huge gamble. And look, it's only natural for a company to want to grow and expand. That's how the free market works. It is. It's one of those things where you get bigger and you go, all right, what's the next step? Or you take a strategy where you get really good at one thing and you are the best in that niche. And Wheel Pros for a long time, I think, was probably the best in that niche. But they owned a whole bunch of wheel companies that were really good wheel companies. So they were one of the best in their niche to sell wheels. But then they started buying up all these other brands that weren't just wheels. So as an outsider, what do I think, and this is just my opinion, what do I think caused Chapter 11 bankruptcy for Hoonigan / Wheel Pros? All right, number one, touching on what I just said, owning too many things. In my opinion, when a large company starts to engulf too much, that is just too much of a workload, I think people start to get overworked and there's too many irons in the fire per se, or too many chefs in the kitchen. When you start losing sight of that thing you're really good at, it is hard to come back from that. And when this happens, a lot of the times these brands that you bought end up being the people who take the fall for the bigger company. Let me use an analogy, like General Motors, back when they got bailed out, right? They still had Pontiac and they still had Saturn, right? They had to go because GM, even with the bailout, couldn't afford to keep these brands alive. So they said, all right, these brands that we've had forever, gotta go, gotta save money. And that's essentially what happens a lot of the times when these big corporations buy these little sub-brands. They kind of buy them, see if there's a benefits to owning them, and if the benefits really aren't there for them, they get rid of them. Which is really sad, because a lot of really amazing companies have been bought out by other ones and just destroyed it. Probably one of the most notorious, not in the car world, is the Time Warner AOL merger. AOL, this is before a lot of your guys' time who are watching this, AOL dominated the internet. It was the way to use the internet. America Online, like AIM, Instant Messenger, amazing. As soon as they merged with Time Warner, game over. Destroyed it. Destroyed the brand, destroyed the marketing, did everything wrong. Number two, changing their name to Hoonigan. When I told people that Wheel Pros changed their name to Hoonigan as an overarching IP, essentially, everybody that I told said, no, they're not. There's no way. Why would they do that? Nobody bought it. They go, that doesn't match up with what Wheel Pros is known for. Wheel Pros is known for selling wheels, distributing parts in warehouses. Hoonigan is known for lifestyle, clothing, loving racing, loving doing burnouts. Those are not the same part of the industry. They're both car-oriented, but they're not the same identity. And number three is a complete theory, please take it with a grain of salt. Maybe not listening to their employees. But I'm more assuming this on the creative side of things. Maybe people weren't appreciated, or they couldn't get raises, or they weren't paid enough, or what have you, especially after Ken's passing. I just know if I was in the same situation as a lot of the hosts, with Wheel Pros buying the IP and unfortunately Ken's passing, like, I definitely would probably feel like that chapter of my life was probably time to close. That's more so my outside perspective, and that's how I would have felt. Theoretically, in an alternate timeline, if I was a host at Hoonigan in that era, I would have felt like it was time to go. And I understand why a lot of these other hosts were like, all right, I've done it a long time. I did everything I did. It's time to do something different. Totally understand that. However, with these hosts leaving, that took away a lot of brand power. But it's just like what we recently saw with other big YouTube channels, right? It's one of those things where if you're getting paid the same thing, you've been there forever, you're not appreciated by higher ups in a big corporation, and you don't really see it going anywhere for yourself or any different for yourself, why wouldn't you go independent when you already have a following from this legacy you have built somewhere else? When you know you could probably do better on your own, or at least try to do better on your own. It makes perfect sense. And with these hosts leaving to go on to bigger and better things, that is tough for whoever's left. They're holding the fort down. And I sympathize with that. I sympathize with everybody who's left at Hoonigan because they're really trying to hold the fort down, and I think they're doing the very best they can. It's hard work making video content. It's not easy. I don't believe this is the creative's fault, once again, but I'm also biased because I'm a creative. So I'm going to take my team, I'm going to be like sticking it to the man, right? In comparison to like, oh yeah, it's the creative's fault. But what I will say is that wearing Hoonigan clothing or being a part of the brand in any shape or form was a badge of honor. You were proud to wear it, and it felt like you were part of the cool kids club. You really did. It felt so special being involved with that brand in any way. And I think that's what the company really needs, is to bring that back. Don't get me wrong, the video series This Versus That, genius. You can film it quickly. You can get it done. You can film multiple episodes in a day. It makes sense. However, I think the days of, say, daily transmission and bringing other people into the fold and telling other people's stories, that's what I think the brand needs to kind of resurge from an outsider's perspective. I think they need to build that relationship with the audience again. I think they need to build that relationship to say, hey, look, we're still here. We still love cars in this specific way. I think they need to make that absolutely clear in whatever shape or form that they can. But that's my opinion from a dude sitting in an office who is a lone YouTuber and doesn't have to deal with the politics of corporations. That's my perspective. And I would like to say I respect everybody who has ever worked at Hoonigan. It is one of those brands that I've always respected. I hope that they're able to get out of this somehow, and I hope that the Chapter 11 reorganization works. I hope it works somehow. I'm rooting for them, but I don't think this turnaround is going to be easy for Wheel Pros. And once again, when people say Wheel Pros, they don't think Hoonigan, they think Wheel Pros. So anybody from Wheel Pros watching, maybe just go back to calling yourself Wheel Pros, because I don't know a single person who calls you Hoonigan for the wheel industry and the parts industry. I would separate those brands again, give it a better identity, and go back to what you're known for. But that's just me. I appreciate every single one of you guys for watching this quick little video today, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.